What's going on, everyone? Welcome to a Wednesday edition of Back Your Play with Q. I'm your host, as always, Rich Quinones, hashtag BYP. Check me out on social media at Rich Q on Q on IG and Twitter as well. And the support, you guys subscribing to the channel, commenting, engaging has been fantastic. Very much appreciative, Rich Q on Q, the YouTube channel. All right, so I'm not going to take too much of your time today, but I wanted to get into a little bit of this debacle that is the Houston Texans. Can we get it out of the way? The Houston Texans are not even a friggin' NFL franchise. I don't know what the hell's going on down there. I don't know what the hell's going on with the drinking water. I have no idea what McNair is thinking, Casario, the GM, is thinking. I don't get it. And we can sit here all day long and kind of paint this nice little rosy picture of this is how the NFL world really works. When coaches don't get the job done, they get fired. Hey, I get it. There are some coaches in the NFL that are not equipped to be NFL head coaches. There are some coaches in the NFL that don't have the makeup or the football acumen to roam the sidelines and be NFL head coaches. There are some guys that are just overwhelmed and the moment's too big. They don't know how to handle it. We've dealt with those guys before. We've seen them off, right? Have we not? When you fire Lovie Smith, which the Texans did the other day after one season, after a season in which they went 3-13-1. And prior to that, they fired David Culley, who went 4-13 with no Deshaun Watson, and they had to throw in Taylor and Mills at quarterback. So you fire now in 2 straight years, after one season, 2 African-American head coaches. Okay, now you've got a GM that's looking to replace another head coach for the 3rd time. And typically in the world I live in, when it comes to the NFL and how organizations are structured and run, GMs usually don't last a 3rd time when they're hiring a new head coach. They don't. They just, it doesn't. So we'll get to the GM in a moment. The problem is, I believe this goes deeper than the product on the field. And I get the fact that, yes, was it a big moment in a big spot for a big game in a otherwise horrible season to go for 2 to beat the Colts, and now you don't get the #1 draft pick, and oh, by the way, that distinction belongs to the Chicago Bears, Lovie Smith's former team. That's a big FU. See you later. There's your parting gift. And I actually kind of love it. You know why? Because Lovie Smith's thinking to himself, if I'm going to be out, I'm going out my way. You guys have battled with me for 17 weeks, every Sunday in the trenches. You're my soldiers. You're in my foxhole. Let's go for it. Let's get the win. Everything else be damned. Good for him. But if you hire this man knowing you're going to fire him after one season just to friggin' appease the football gods and the Rooney Rule, that's bullshit. That's a crock of shit. There's something really fundamentally wrong with that. There's really something that's a way of thinking, and it's a bad way of thinking. And that tells me that the issues with the Texans go further than the players on the field, and it goes up top to the ownership group, to the GM down. That's a very toxic culture right now. And if I'm an African-American head coach, if I'm a black head coach or a black head coaching candidate, why the hell would I even want to take that job? Because I might sit there and say, I'm going to be out on the street in a year if I don't win 7, 8, 9 games or win a division. I mean, honestly. And the NFL sits there, and what does the NFL say to us? We want to protect the shield, right? That's all you hear about the NFL. The NFL is all about protecting the shield and giving minorities an opportunity to thrive and to achieve, and all this other shit that's spewed out there by the league, because that's at the end of the day what it is, right? So if you're gonna tap dance for everyone, and you want to appease people, and you want to shut up a lot of people when it comes to the Rooney Rule. So if we're talking about the rule, and if I hire a black head coach and then fire him after one season, I hire another black coach and then fire him after one season, isn't that kind of like violating? Isn't that kind of spitting on the spirit of the rule? Isn't it kind of dismissing the rule, right? But again, NFL owners, they're not going to do shit about it. Roger Goodell's not going to do shit about it because it is what it is. And as long as everyone gets paid, everyone gets their check twice a month, no one cares about anything. And that I have a problem with. because it's the thinking. That's dangerous thinking. That's where we're at. If you go back, beginning of the 2022 season, Lovie Smith was just one of 6 minority head coaches in the NFL in a league where 70% of the players are Black. If you go back 30-something odd years ago, Art Shell, great man, great player, excellent head coach for the Raiders, hired in 1989 as the first Black head coach in modern history. There have been 191 people hired as head coaches since. 24 have been Black. Go back to 2003. Talk about the minority, the hiring of the Rooney Rules, 2003. What did the Lions do? That rule be damned. We're going to skip over interviewing minorities. We're going to go right to Steve Mariucci. That was a disaster. They got fined $200,000. Kind of tells you where their thinking was at that time. Mike McDaniel, biracial. Ron Rivera, Latin. Robert Saleh, Lebanese American. You got 2 head coaches in the NFL that are African American, Tomlin and Bowles. You're going to have about 5 vacancies. I think we can all agree. Carolina, Indianapolis, Denver, the Texans, the Cardinals, and the Panthers. I mentioned Carolina. I would have liked to saw Wilkes if they got into playoffs. You rip that interim tag off him, and you deem him head coach. But what about guys if you're an Eric Bieniemy or Raheem Morris or D'Amico Ryan again? I understand these jobs. There's only 32 of them in the NFL. But if I'm a head coach, if I'm an African-American head coach or a young and up-and-coming coordinator, African-American coordinator, why the hell would I even want to sniff the Houston Texans? I mean, I'm being serious now because nobody wants to talk about this. I'm being totally serious. Why would I want to put myself in that position? Because if I don't succeed in year number 1, I'm going to be out on the street. And with Lovie Smith, I mean, you got to call it the way you see it. No one's sitting here saying Lovie Smith was an all-time great head coach, but if you know it's a rebuilding year and you understand that this is the hand you've been dealt, and you're trying to get the number 1 draft pick, or you're trying to acquire talent, or you're trying to free up money, or you're trying to make some good moves in drafts come April, then let this man play it out a little longer. Give him the benefit of the doubt, right? Because if you recall, last year, Lovie Smith turned around and what did he say? He said the NFL had a problem about Black coaches, and a year later, this man is fired. So the lack of diversity is absolutely friggin' alarming. And I feel as though it needs to be talked about more. And the thing is, I don't have a solution to it. I don't. I really don't. I can't get in the mind of how some of these owners or some of these GMs are thinking. You're entitled to hire whoever you want to hire. But this is a bad look. This had red flags written all over it. This basically, and again, you got to call it the way you see it. Truth serum, this is the Houston Texans just saying, yeah, whatever. Yeah, we'll appease them. Go hire this Black guy. That's really, seriously. People don't want to hear it. But that's how it is. Hire this guy. Get rid of him. There you go. We'll move on. It's a horrible look by ownership group. It's a horrible look by the GM, who, by the way, should not have a job if you're going through your 3rd head coach in 3 years. That's a freaking horrible look. It doesn't happen. You don't sustain that. You don't last. They're not even an NFL franchise right now. They're not even an NFL organization. And the players, if you're smart and you're worth your weight in gold, these players are probably thinking around, what the hell do I want to be in this place for? I mean, this is where my career is going to come to die. That's how bad it is. I don't like the line of thinking here. I think it's Bush League. I think it's a piss poor look by the Texans, and guys like Culley and guys like Lovie Smith deserve a lot more respect than what the Texans gave them. Let me know what you think. I'm always open to the opinions. Comment on the video below. You can get at me on Twitter, on IG at RichQNQ. As I mentioned, I don't ask for much. If you like the video, if you like the content, if you're enjoying the content, and I hope you are, I like to think you are, subscribe to the channel, RichQNQ. Always love to hear from you guys. Come at me. Let me know what you think. If I'm off base, if I'm in the ballpark, if I'm out of the ballpark, if I'm off my rocker, that's all good. Let me hear what you have to say. Let your voice be heard. Appreciate you guys keeping it locked in for a short edition of a BYP right here on a Wednesday. So again, with that being said, follow me on all social media accounts. Check out the YouTube channel, Rich Q&Q. Appreciate you guys locking it in to a Wednesday edition of Back Your Play.